Hello, this is my first development log of my RPG inspired by the Blade Itself novel written by Joe Abercrombie. Here are the weapons which I detached from the Greystone Tough character in Blender. Greystone is part of the Paragon assets on the Epic Games store. So here are my weapons. They're just lying in the world right now. Well, this is a helmet, but the sword is currently in the air, mainly because I wanted to simulate and test the physics. I did have an issue before where the physics were not working, mainly because the sword either wasn't imported properly from Blender or the LOD number was too small. I think it was set to 1 and I should have set it to 3. But there was another issue that I did come into contact with, which was the sword did not attach itself to the player's hand when you pick it up. The sword instead stayed between his legs and the player would walk around with it attached, but it wasn't attached in the right place. So I went back into the skeletal mesh, added a rig where the sword can then be attached to his hand, and the player can also not attack when the sword is not in his hand. So that will stop it from doing a slight sword lunge, but there is no sword in his hand, so it kind of looks like a punch but not really. So I wanted to take that out so that the player didn't have the ability to attack even when the sword is out of his hand, even though that could have been a good mechanic, as in punching and kicking, just normal combat. I didn't want it to be a constant sword attack without the sword in his hand. So I can load up the game and I can run around using WASD. Here are my items. The physics work, they're all lying on the ground. The sword isn't stuck in the air, it's lying down. But I can go over to the sword and a caption will show up called Short Sword. This will let the player know that they are standing over a equipable weapon, or that they can interact with it when the name shows up. So I can press F and it goes straight into the player's hand, they're holding it, everything looks good. I can walk back over to the shield. Shield will then attach, it's not clipping through his hand and it's perfectly strapped onto his lower arm, which I did have issues trying to put it on, but that was only because I was trying to attach it to his upper arm when it shouldn't be there, because, you know, when he's running like this, you can see that he has it on his lower arm and it makes more sense that he's trying to block and it wouldn't be where his shoulder is, because that would be an odd angle. But I can also pick up the helmet, and I did find this helmet in the folder for Greystone, and I think it's a pretty cool warrior helmet that matches the overall physique that he has. So I can run around, I can attack with the mouse button, the left mouse button. I can run around, I can roll, and when I roll the player doesn't get stuck, doesn't continue the animation. I can go straight back to idling or jogging, so that works. I'm glad that it does. I can also sprint. The player's speed will eventually get quicker. I will add a stamina bar which will decrease once using the sprint button and rolling, so that the player doesn't have an option to constantly roll away when the enemy is attacking, because that would be a bit too easy for them to win the fight. You would rather have that restriction where the fight gets a little bit more difficult because, oh, you could have rolled but the stamina bar is low, or hiding, you've got to go find a campfire to regen at, which will also be added. Come out of here and I can go and open a level that I'm working on, and this level is the height map that I got. I started modelling around, just putting a few things here and there. This is going to be the overall base where you can fight. Foliage has not been added yet, but it will be. I have added directional light, exponential height fog, and a post-process volume. And if I go into the post-process volume, you can see that I have enabled vignette intensity so that it has a black shadow around the edges of the screen, kind of making it a bit more gloomy and like you're going through, because this is all going to be based at night. Right now it's daytime, so that I can see what I'm doing, because otherwise I'll be working on something all in the dark, and even though you wouldn't really be able to see these little details because the game will be at night, I would rather see what I'm adding so that I don't catch it out later and be like, oh, I could have put this there. But it's all going to be at night so that the particle effects really show off. I think it would also work with the brief that I have where enemies would be able to see the campfires. Like, you've got to regen because your health is low, but you also need to hide from enemies. Enemies will spot the fire and you need to quickly get out of there, but don't have less than 5 points of health, because that wouldn't be good. How are you going to get away? How are you going to fight? You need to go find another campfire because the other one is going to burn out. So that is my ideas that I do have, and this is the process that I have took. I am using a Udemy course to get where I am and figure out everything, and the Udemy course also had a lot of mechanics that I really wanted to try out. I was looking online for some mechanics that I could use, but none of them really fit what I was going for. I wanted to add souls being caught into the blade, and then that blade will be charged up ready to fight the final boss, because then it would be a really powerful special attack that you can only get once you've killed everyone and collected all of their souls. And I'm thinking about replacing their soul with like a little flame of fire, something to do with Logan Nine Fingers and me giving him a fiery ability within this game to make it a bit more cooler, but also stick with what the novel has given me to work on. But right now, this is all I've got. I will be adding more, there will be enemies. I will be keeping you updated with what I have and create this into a short series so that it goes from what I currently have to hopefully a full-fledged built game. So, thank you.